Happy Thanksgiving to all from PSN. I'm your host, Artie Decker. I'm back here, week three of the playoffs. We had a lot of surprising games to me the past 2 weeks, really. I mean, is it going to continue in this round, or is this round the round that we're finally going to see the cream come to the top? The true athletes be a little too much, or is the Cinderella teams going to continue the path at which they've took? Let's just jump right in here in 7A. You got McGill Tulane going into Central Phoenix City. These two teams are undefeated. Over the last 4 to 5 matchups, McGill has gotten the better of them 3-2. I mean, a lot of momentum for McGill and a lot of demons to be exercised for the number one Red Devils. I believe McGill has beat them the last 2 years, to my knowledge. But this team is just a little bit different. Justin Ross, I believe, will be just a little too much for them. And I actually like the Red Devils to sneak by them and continue this path to T-Town. Looking on, we have Hoover going into Thompson. This is a rematch of the just epic battle of Week 9 between these two teams. Uh, Taking absolutely nothing away from Tagliova and the Warriors, but the Hoover turned the ball over 3 to 4 times in that game. I expect them to play a whole lot better, a lot cleaner game, make fewer mistakes, and Parker to be able to throw the football down the field. He didn't have a whole lot of success in that game. I think he's going to step up, have a bigger game. As we've seen this past week, Hoover's defense played so much better. We're able to hold usually powerhouse Hewitt Trustful Huskies offense to 21 points. That's a great effort against a team like that. Paul Tyson throwing the football just to bottle them up. That's a great effort. Look for them to do the very same thing to Tagliova and company and slow them down just enough to get by them and continue their path to yet another state championship. Looking on, we have Opelika going into Hillcrest. This is an interesting game because a lot of people thought Hillcrest would be here. Not very few people thought that Opelika would be here. Opelika was a team that had moments during the season where they've kind of struggled, but when it's counted, they found it. I mean, they have really played well the past 3 to 4 weeks. Um, just the veteran style of play at which Opelika plays with. I picked against them in week one, and they burned me. Same way of week two. This week, I'm on the train. I'm going with Opelika. And just from that experience factor, I think they're going to, feed off of last year and find a way to get on to the fourth round. Looking on, we got Spanish Fork going on with Tumpka. This is going to be a fantastic game. Both of these teams, red hot, just dominant teams. But once again, I got to go with the experience factor. I think they're going to be just a little too much and get by Wetumpka. Even though Wetumpka might be more talented, I believe that the Toros are going to just have just that little bit of X factor to them and get by them in that one. Looking on, we got Pinson Valley going in Austin. This is another game. A lot of people have picked Austin, but as I've said all season long, I love Bo Nix. I love Pat Nix. And that backfield, the receivers, just so much talent at the skill positions. And Asa Martin's done a great job for Austin. Had a great year, but I believe this is going to be a shootout, and I actually like Pinson to go ahead and pull off the semi upset and continue their path to T-Town as well. Looking on, we have Oxford going into Clay Chalkville. This is a kind of a something's got to give kind of battle because Oxford's got the great defense. Clay Chalkville lives off moving the football. But this time around, Clay Chalkville's probably going to run into a defense they ain't seen all season. Oxford's so talented on that side of the football, so athletic, and just swallows you up. And look for them to do the same in this game and slow down Clay Chalkville enough to get by and move on. Looking on, we have the 5A. You got Beauregard going into St. Paul's. Beauregard, even without Webb, the past 2 weeks managed to get the W's, but St. Paul's a little different animal. They're used to being here. This is nothing new to them. Expect them to go ahead, have too much for them. Like I say, we don't know the status of Webb. I'm assuming the kid's going to play, but if he doesn't, it could get ugly. But if he does, I like them the close ones, St. Paul, to go ahead and put them out anyway. As they, Beauregard's trying to get back to the state championship game. It's going to be interesting to see if they can do that. Looking on, we have Demopolis going into Viger. Demopolis has had a great year, really has, but Viger over the second half of the season has just turned it on and continued to stay red hot, just dominating team after team after team. And I actually like Viger to go ahead and get the win in that one. Looking on, we have St. Clair County going into Winona. This is a rematch of the regular season. Winona won it easily, 26-7 the first time around. Just that mental factor, I think, will be too much. Winona is too talented for St. Clair. St. Clair's had a great ride to get where they have, but I think it's going to run out as Winona will be too much for them. Looking on, we have Etowah going into Briarwood. Etowah played great last week, dominated a really good Brooks team, but Briarwood just they're so confident. They're used to being here. They're used to being in the spotlight. Etowah, on the other hand, they're used to being here and choking. So it's going to be interesting to see, can they get over that hump, and I just don't think they will. Offensively, they're just probably not strong enough to hang with Briarwood. So I do like the home team in that one. Looking on, we have Bibb County going into UMS Wright. Bibb County's had a great year, but I think they're going to run into something they ain't seen all season. UMS Wright is just a battle-tested, good team coming out of a nasty region, and look for that to be the X factor and be just a little too much for Bibb County and move on. Looking on, you got Andalusia going into Alabama Christian. Another good story. Alabama Christian, one of their best seasons in school history, playing really, really well. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Andalusia is just too talented and too good on the defensive side of the ball for Alabama Christian. Looking on, you got Fayette County going into Hopes Bluff. Hopes Bluff, kind of that story as we've talked about. They're a sneaky team. I told you to watch out for them as soon as the playoffs started. They just keep winning. It's not pretty. Last week was not pretty at all, but they just were able to bottle up Rogers and just would not let them score. And that was a huge, huge factor. They didn't really play that well offensively, but they did just enough to get by. Same way that first week, played really well defensively, bottled up a good Mustang team, and did just enough to get by. Look for that to happen once again. Fayette County's not explosive offensively, built a lot like Rogers. Look for them to bottle them up, and Landon Johnson and Darian Meath to do just enough to get by them once again and move on to the fourth round. And then in the other game, we have Cherokee County going into Sacs. This is a really interesting game because you have that factor of back in the regular season, Sacs won this game 45-0, and it was a laugher. It probably wasn't even that close. Cherokee County just had a horrendous regular season and just kind of scraped into the playoffs. But then all of a sudden, they snuck by a good Sardis team. They snuck by a good Wilson team. They're going to have to do more than sneak if they're going to beat Sacs. I just don't think they have enough. It might be closer than the first time around, but I do like Sacs to get the win and move on to the finals in the North. Looking on, we have Mobile Christian going into Clark County. This is another rematch of, I believe, week 7, where Clark County won 21-14. But I think this is a different Mobile Christian team. Last week, shut out a good Gordo team, 24-0. Just kind of one of those statement games. I mean, they in the regular season, kind of didn't really live up to the expectations of being number one. Maybe it was just a little too much for them. They kind of refocused. As we said, shut out a good offense. I believe that's the first time they've been shut out in 167 games for Gordo on that. So, I expect more of the same. I think they're going to do just a little more than they did the first time around, play a little bit better, and they're actually going to get by Clark County on this one. Looking on, you have American Christian going into Hillcrest Evergreen. American Christian's had a great year, but Hillcrest Evergreen is really played well. The only losses they've had have been to upper class throughout the region. They pretty much have had their way. Winning pretty much every game by at least 10 points or more. Look for them This is going to be close, I think. But look for Hillcrest Evergreen to pull away late and win it. Looking on, we have Sylvania going into Randolph County down to Wadowee. Um, you know, Randolph County is coming off a battle with Fultondale, as we spoke of, what happened last week. Jason Jones played great, but Fultondale come up just a little bit short. And what I told you would be just a fantastic game, 35-28. Um, you have Hester running the football. You have Lane running the football. Thunder and Lightning. You got Lane's a 200-pound kid. Hester's a 150-pound kid. It's going to be tough for the Rams to slow them down, as pretty much nobody has. They have consistently scored over 30 points or more in every single game. Um, Even Piedmont, had them down by 10 points in the second half, but managed to let them come back and get them 41-31. Uh, you know, this is just a really talented team compared to the team that Sylvania beat last week, West Morgan. West Morgan was more of a finesse team. They were looking to throw the football and get people in space. As to where Randolph's a little more in your face, ready to run it down your throat. And even if you want to stack the box on them or whatever, Pestridge can throw the football. He can also run the ball. It's a more of a dynamic look than what Sylvania saw last week. As to where on the other side of the coin, Sylvania, if that offensive line can take over, Randolph County has been known to give up some points defensively. So this could be a really high scoring game potentially, especially if Sylvania can get their offense rolling. Um, so, I mean, it could be a really good game. It could be back and forth. I think a few weeks ago I would have probably had took this thing in a blowout, being Randolph County. But you know what, Sylvania's kind of opened my eyes. They really stepped up last week. I thought maybe losing Shavers would probably be the end of them, but they proved me wrong. They really took over, played hard. A lot of kids stepped up. The fullback Dover had over 100 yards. Some of the other younger kids got in there, really played well. Battles played well. Spears run the ball like a madman last week, kind of out of nowhere. Uh, it's going to be interesting to see because it's going to take that effort and then some if they're going to knock off Randolph County. And you might say, well, you picked against them like 50 times this season. I'm going to have to pick against them again. Randolph County's just a little too much talent for them, but it will be closer than what you think. But I do like Randolph to get by them. Looking on, we have Piedmont going into Cobra Heights. Cobra Heights snuck by a really good Weaver team last week. Piedmont has kind of sleepwalked their way into the third round. I mean, didn't play very well against a less than talented Geraldine team, and then Piedmont, or rather Pennington last week. Uh, they're not a super team either, really, but Piedmont just kind of, I don't know, coasted, I guess you could say, but nevertheless won the football game and controlled the game, especially on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be interesting to see if that defense can continue that, because Cobra Heights is more of an offensive built team. If they can slow them down enough, um, Piedmont is going to have to crank up the offense, though. That kind of seems to be what they're having problems with. I'm not sure. Lee Stanley and Cardavian Myers normally pretty much do what they want to do, but over the last 2 weeks, that's just not been the case. Look for them to kind of get it back together, though, and probably win this thing a little easier than what you would think and knock off Cobra Heights. Looking on, we have Luverne going into Leroy. Luverne kind of shocked me last week, knocked off Aliceville. Aliceville was my pick, actually, to get to Tuscaloosa again, so that's kind of out the back door. But I wasn't really firm on them. I kind of I felt good about them just from the experience factor. A lot of these teams are not used to being here, so I just kind of went with the veteran on the group. But Luverne has had a kind of an up and down season. At times it's looked really good, and at times looked really bad. And but it seems like against tougher competition, they've kind of um, done less than what they could. I guess you could say underachieved. And Leroy's defense is really playing well. They bottled up a good Elba team, and again bottled up another team last week. So look for them to do the same. Luverne's had problems scoring points at times, and I think that's going to be a huge factor. Leroy should be able slow them down and get by them going on into the fourth round. Looking on, you got Goshen going into St. Luke's. This is a great game. Goshen's had a great year. Really, the only stumbling block they had was the Elba. Turned the ball over 5 times, lost by 6 points. I mean, it's just one of those things, or else they would be undefeated right now. St. Luke's has had a great year, a phenomenal year. Best year in school history for them. Offensively, really playing well. They dropped 69 on Abbeville last week. So look for them to continue to do the same. And Goshen is pretty good defensively, but I don't know if they're good enough to knock off St. Luke's. And I actually like St. Luke's to continue on this Cinderella type season and move on into the fourth round. Looking on, you got the number one team, the defending champs, Fife, rolling into Sulligent. Uh, you know, Sulligent hadn't been here in a while as far as this type of success. So they're kind of on cloud nine at this point. They got nothing to lose, and they're looking to find a way, somehow, some way, to knock off Benefield and his Red Devils. But they kind of match up uh, similar to them. They like to run the football, get downhill on you. They don't. There's not a lot of finesse to them. There's not a lot of trickery. It's more of a vanilla look about them. It's Fife-esque. It has moments, I guess you could say. There's different options that they can run the football in some of the packages that they use. And as far as the up front, they got some big old kids that can really get downhill on you quick, and they love to get to that second level and block. So it's going to be nothing that Fife had never seen as far as what they face in practice for the most part. Um, they're not going to drop back and throw it 15, 20 times. That's just not what they want to do. Metcalf, great running back. That's going to be the big key. If he can have a monster game and continue to move the football on Fife, kind of like the way Robert Houston did last week. Robert Houston, it was kind of misleading. They only scored 6 points, but they got in the red zone 5 times without scoring. So it's going to be interesting to see if Metcalf can have that kind of success, that 150 something yard game, kind of like Houston did, and they actually finish those drives. Uh, Jaron Scott, the quarterback, can throw the ball when they want to throw it. So they may have to throw it in a few times to get points on the board as to where Lafayette didn't really have that ability. So if they can kind of capitalize on that, that would be on the offensive side of things. But Sulligent defensively has had moments where they just haven't looked that great. They give up a lot of points last week to a wishbone style offense in Reeltown, 25 points. It's not exactly the greatest omen going into a game against Fife, but this may be close for a little while. But I do like Fife to go ahead and pull away in that one. Looking on, we have Lynette going into Lamar County. This is another kind of a tailor-made game for Lynette. Lamar County's not a explosive offensive team, and as we've said all season, Lynette possibly the best defense in 2A besides Fife. Um, you know, it could be a rough night for Lamar County as far as their offense goes. They just a comparison battle. One of the best teams they played in the region was but Lamar County has struggled as they got beat by Sullivan in that game. So I actually like Lynette's defense to be just a little too much for a struggling offense and for them to go ahead and move on into the next round. Looking on to 1A, you got Wadley going to Marengo. Marengo had the upset over a good Georgiana team, 18 to nothing. Kind of shocked us all on that one. But I just don't think they can do the same against Wadley. Wadley's on too much of a tear, just dominating, and expect them to do more of the same, maybe in a closer fashion, but I do like Wadley to get the win. Looking on, we got Sweetwater looking to knock off Maplesville. Maplesville has kind of showed that they might be a little human over the last few weeks, but talent-wise will be just a little too much for Sweetwater as they've won the last 4 in this series. Looking on, you got Addison going into South Lamar. Addison with the impressive win over Hackleburg last week, 41-16. That's where South Lamar kind of struggled with an iffy Cedar Bluff team, 21-14. Look for them to get back on track this week and be just a little too much for Addison talent-wise and get by them. Looking on, you got the Tornadoes of Pickens County going into Cherokee. This is the best season since 1984 for Cherokee. So they're riding the high at this point, but I think it's going to run out as the Tornadoes are just on a tear, throwing the ball, running the ball, extremely balanced offense, and will be too much for Cherokee, probably in blowout fashion. That pretty much wraps up the week. After this week, we'll know exactly who all will go to the finals of the North and the South. So that's pretty much going to wrap us up. I'm your host, Artie Decker for PSN. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.